She drew the same face every single day. Always the same gentle eyes, the same warm smile, the same hands reaching toward her from the paper. 7-year-old Sophia Caldwell had filled dozens of sketchbooks with this mysterious man, and her billionaire mother had no idea who he was supposed to be. Until the morning, Marcus Chen, a single father working as a janitor in their 50-story empire, saw one of those drawings and dropped to his knees, sobbing like his world had just shattered all over again. The glass towers of Caldwell Industries pierced the Manhattan skyline like crystal daggers, each floor worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. On the 42nd floor, behind soundproof doors and bulletproof windows, Victoria Caldwell sat frozen at her mahogany desk, staring at her daughter's latest artwork. The drawing was simple, rendered in purple crayon with the unsteady hand of a child, a man with kind eyes and an easy smile, his arms outstretched as if beckoning someone forward. At the bottom, in Sophia's careful 7-year-old handwriting, "My friend, who makes me not scared." Victoria's throat tightened. At 38, she commanded a $12 billion pharmaceutical empire, employed 14,000 people across 6 continents, and could negotiate billion-dollar mergers without flinching. But this single piece of paper made her hands tremble. "Mrs. Caldwell?" Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your 9 o'clock is here." Victoria quickly slid the drawing into her desk drawer next to 17 others just like it. All the same man. All signed with the same heartbreaking innocence. "Send them in," she managed. But her mind wasn't on quarterly projections or FDA approvals. It was on the child therapist's words from last week. Sophia is creating an imaginary protector figure. It's common in children who've experienced trauma. The repeated drawings suggest she feels unsafe and is seeking comfort in this fantasy. Relationship. Fantasy. That's what Dr. Martinez had called it. But something about the consistency, the detail, the way Sophia's entire demeanor softened when she drew this man. It felt like more than childhood imagination. 23 floors below, Marcus Chen pushed his cleaning cart through the employee break room, invisible to the marketing executives grabbing their morning coffee. At 35, he moved through the gleaming hallways of Caldwell Industries like a ghost. Noticed only when trash bins overflowed or coffee spills needed attention. His uniform was pressed but worn, his name tag slightly crooked. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, the kind that came from working 2 jobs while raising a 6-year-old daughter alone. In his pocket, wrapped in plastic to protect it from cleaning chemicals, was a photo of a little boy with bright eyes and an infectious grin. Danny. His son, gone 3 years now, but Marcus still carried his picture everywhere. The cancer had taken 18 months to steal Danny away, 18 months of hospital rooms and false hopes and medical bills that had cost Marcus everything. His house, his savings, his marriage. His ex-wife Sarah couldn't handle watching their child fade away. She'd left when Danny was down to 63 pounds and speaking in whispers. Marcus had held his son's hand through those final weeks alone. Now he cleaned office buildings and drove for a delivery service on weekends, sending every spare dollar to his mother, who was raising his surviving daughter, Lily. He saw his little girl twice a month if he was lucky, when he could afford the bus ticket to Philadelphia. The rest of the time, he worked and remembered and tried not to think about how Danny used to laugh when Marcus made shadow puppets on the hospital wall. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The morning routine was always the same. Marcus started on the top floors and worked his way down, emptying wastebaskets and wiping surfaces in the executive suites, while the powerful people who owned this glass kingdom went about their important business. He'd been cleaning the 42nd floor for 6 months now, long enough to recognize the patterns. Victoria Caldwell arrived every morning at exactly 7:30, her heels clicking against marble like a metronome. She spoke in crisp, measured tones to her assistant, never raising her voice, never showing weakness. Marcus had glimpsed her a few times through office doorways. Tall, elegant, with steel-gray eyes and auburn hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. She looked like someone who had never known uncertainty, but it was the little girl who captured his attention. Sophia Caldwell was 7 years old, with her mother's sharp intelligence, but none of her composure. While Victoria conducted meetings and signed documents, Sophia sat in the corner of the executive suite, always drawing. She had her own small desk, equipped with every art supply money could buy, professional colored pencils, thick drawing paper, even a junior easel. Yet she always chose the same purple crayon. Marcus had noticed her during his second week on the job. Unlike the other children who occasionally visited the office, Sophia never ran around or demanded attention. She simply drew, hour after hour, with the focused intensity of someone much older. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her face, and when she concentrated, she chewed on her bottom lip, just like Marcus always stopped that thought before it could finish. This particular Thursday morning started like any other. Victoria Caldwell's voice carried from her office as Marcus emptied the wastebasket near Sophia's corner desk. "The Jakarta facility is 3 weeks behind schedule," Victoria was saying into her headset. "I want daily reports from now until they're back on track." Sophia didn't look up from her drawing. She never seemed bothered by her mother's phone calls or the constant stream of executives seeking Victoria's attention. Marcus admired that about her. The way she created her own peaceful space in the center of her mother's storm. He was reaching for the small waste bin beside her desk when he saw it. The drawing lay face up on Sophia's workspace, still damp with purple crayon. But this one was different from the others he'd glimpsed in passing. This one showed the mysterious man kneeling beside a small figure. A child, lying in what looked like a hospital bed. The man's hand rested on the child's forehead, and tears streamed down his face. In the corner, written in Sophia's careful script, "He's sad like me." Marcus's hand froze on the trash bin. His chest constricted as if someone had wrapped steel cables around his ribs and pulled tight. The purple crayon had captured something that felt impossible. The exact expression he'd worn during those final nights in Danny's hospital room. How could a 7-year-old girl, who'd never met him, know about the way he'd touched his son's fevered forehead? How could she draw the precise angle of his shoulders when grief bent him forward? How could she know about the tears he'd tried so hard to hide? "Excuse me." The voice was small, uncertain. "Are you okay?" Marcus realized he was staring at the drawing, his hands shaking. Sophia had put down her crayon and was looking at him with dark eyes that seemed far too old for her face. "I'm sorry," he managed, straightening quickly. "I didn't mean to." "You look like him," Sophia said simply, tilting her head. "Like my friend in the pictures." The cleaning cart seemed to tilt under Marcus's grip. "Your friend?" Sophia nodded toward her drawing. "He visits me when I'm scared. Mom says he's not real, but I know he is. He feels real." Before Marcus could respond, Victoria Caldwell's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Sophia, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" Victoria had emerged from her office, her expression sharp with protective alarm. Marcus immediately stepped back, recognizing the look of a mother who trusted no one with her child's safety. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said quickly. "I was just cleaning." "Yes." Victoria's tone could have frozen fire. "Perhaps you could do so without disturbing my daughter." Heat flooded Marcus's cheeks. Of course. I apologize. He turned to go, but Sophia's voice stopped him. Mom, look! He looks just like my friend. See? Victoria glanced at the drawing, then back at Marcus. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Confusion, maybe even recognition, but it was gone so quickly, Marcus thought he'd imagined it. Sophia, please put your art supplies away. Mrs. Henderson will be here soon for your lessons. But Mom. Now, sweetheart. Sophia's shoulders slumped, but she began gathering her crayons. Marcus watched her fold the drawing carefully and slip it into a purple folder, already thick with similar artwork. How many pictures had she drawn? How long had she been seeing this face that somehow looked like his? Victoria waited until Marcus had moved to the far end of the hall before following him. Mr. She paused, realizing she didn't know his name. Chen. Marcus Chen. Mr. Chen. She kept her voice low, professional. I appreciate your work here, but I need you to understand that my daughter is fragile. She's been through a difficult time, and she has a very active imagination. I can't have her forming attachments to people who… She stopped herself. Who clean toilets for a living? Marcus finished quietly. Victoria's cheeks flushed pink. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. They stared at each other for a moment. Marcus saw the exhaustion behind Victoria's polished exterior. The tight lines around her eyes. The slight tremor in her hands. She looked like someone holding herself together through sheer force of will. My daughter matters more to me than anything else in this world, Victoria said, finally. I won't apologize for protecting her. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand. I have a daughter too. Something in his tone made Victoria pause. You do? In Philadelphia? She's 6. He didn't mention Danny. Didn't say that he understood exactly the kind of terror that made a mother's voice sharp with protective fear. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Then you know. I know. Marcus agreed. He finished his work in uncomfortable silence, hyper-aware of Victoria's watchful presence. But as he prepared to move to the next floor, Sophia appeared at his elbow. Are you coming back tomorrow? She asked in a whisper. Marcus glanced at Victoria, who was deep in conversation with her assistant. I work here every day. Good. Sophia smiled. For the first time since he'd met her, I want to show you more pictures of my friend. I think you'd like him. Before Marcus could respond, she skipped back to her desk, leaving him standing in the hallway with his heart hammering against his ribs. That night, in his studio apartment in Queens, Marcus sat at his small kitchen table, staring at the photo of Danny. His son grinned back at him, gap-toothed and fearless. Unaware that cancer was already growing in his blood. She draws you, Marcus whispered to the picture. I don't know how, but she draws you. The rational part of his mind knew it was impossible. Sophia Caldwell had never met his son. There was no logical explanation for why a grieving billionaire's daughter would repeatedly draw a face that looked like the man who'd lost everything trying to save a little boy. But Marcus had learned that grief didn't follow logic. Sometimes it created connections that couldn't be explained, only felt. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Lily asked about you today. She wants to know when you're coming to visit. Soon, he typed back, though they both knew it would be at least 2 weeks before he could afford another bus ticket. As he got ready for bed, Marcus found himself thinking about Sophia's words. He visits me when I'm scared. The longing in her voice when she talked about her drawings. The way she'd looked at him as if recognizing something familiar. Tomorrow, he would return to the 42nd floor. He would empty trash bins and clean windows and pretend he belonged in the shadows of Victoria Caldwell's empire. But now, he would also carry the impossible knowledge that somewhere in this glass tower a little girl was drawing pictures of his son. And despite every rational thought in his head, Marcus Chen was beginning to believe that maybe, somehow, Danny was drawing her back. The next morning brought unseasonable warmth to Manhattan, the kind of October day that felt borrowed from summer. Marcus arrived at Caldwell Industries before sunrise, as always, but something felt different. The security guard nodded at him, actually acknowledged his presence instead of just checking his ID badge. The lobby seemed brighter, more welcoming, or maybe it was just the anticipation humming in his chest. Victoria Caldwell was already at her desk when Marcus reached the 42nd floor, her phone pressed to her ear as she paced behind floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophia sat in her corner, surrounded by an explosion of art supplies, working on something new. Marcus tried to focus on his routine. Empty bins, wipe surfaces, replace liner bags, but his eyes kept drifting to the little girl's intense concentration. She was using multiple colors today. Not just her usual purple crayon. Blues and greens and warm yellows brought her latest creation to life. "The shareholders' meeting is next week," Victoria was saying sharply into her headset. "I want those projections perfect. No, not acceptable. Perfect." Sophia looked up from her drawing and caught Marcus watching her. She smiled and gestured him over. Marcus glanced at Victoria, still deep in her phone call, then quietly pushed his cart closer to Sophia's desk. "Look," she whispered, turning her paper toward him. This drawing showed two children, a boy and a girl, sitting together under a tree. The boy looked exactly like Danny, down to the cowlick that had never stayed flat, no matter how much hair gel Marcus used. The girl looked like Sophia herself. Both children were smiling, their hands clasped as if they were the very best of friends. At the bottom, in purple letters, "The Sunshine Place" was what Danny had called heaven during his final weeks. "Do you think it's warm there, Dad? Do you think kids can run and play without getting tired? What's the Sunshine Place?" Marcus managed to ask. Sophia's eyes lit up. "It's where my friend lives now. He told me about it. He says it's never cold there, and nobody ever gets sick, and there's ice cream for breakfast, if you want it." The world tilted sideways. Marcus gripped the edge of her desk to steady himself. "He told you? In my dreams," Sophia said, matter-of-factly. "He comes to visit when I have nightmares about the dark place. He makes me feel safe." "The dark place?" Sophia's smile faded. She glanced toward her mother, still pacing and talking business, then leaned closer to Marcus. "The place where bad men hurt people," she whispered. "Where they hurt my daddy." Marcus felt ice flood his veins. "Someone hurt your father?" Before Sophia could answer, Victoria's voice cracked like a whip across the office. "Sophia, come away from there. Now!" Both Marcus and Sophia startled. Victoria had ended her call and was striding toward them, her face pale with something that looked like panic. "Mom, I was just showing—" "I said now." Victoria's tone brooked no argument. Sophia's face crumpled, but she obediently gathered her drawings and retreated to a chair farther from Marcus. Victoria waited until her daughter was out of earshot before turning back to him. "I thought I made myself clear yesterday," she said quietly, but there was steel underneath the civility. "She was just showing me her artwork," Marcus replied. "I didn't. My daughter has been through enough trauma without you encouraging her fantasies." "What happened to her father?" The question escaped before Marcus could stop it. Victoria went very still, her face draining of color. "That's none of your concern. She mentioned bad men, someone who hurt—" "Stop!" Victoria's voice shook, despite her attempt to control it. "You need to leave. Now." Marcus looked past her to where Sophia sat, hunched over her drawings, her small shoulders rigid with tension. Even from across the room, he could see tears dripping onto her paper. "Mrs. Caldwell, go." Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice to a fierce whisper. "Whatever game you think you're playing, whatever angle you're working, it ends now. My daughter has been through hell, and I won't let some opportunistic janitor manipulate her trauma for whatever sick reason my son is dead." The words came out harder than Marcus intended, cutting through Victoria's accusations like a blade. She stopped mid-sentence, her mouth still open. "His name was Danny," Marcus continued, his voice rough with pain. "He was 6 when he died. Leukemia. I lost him 3 years ago." Victoria stared at him, confusion replacing anger in her eyes. "The man in your daughter's drawings," Marcus said quietly. "He looks exactly like my son. Exactly. Down to the cowlick in his hair and the gap between his front teeth. I don't know how or why, but she's been drawing my dead child." The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Across the room, Sophia had stopped crying and was watching them with wide, frightened eyes. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "I know. But look at this." Marcus pulled out his wallet with trembling fingers and extracted the photo he always carried. Danny grinning at the camera, his Superman cape askew, one front tooth missing from his gap-toothed smile. Victoria took the picture with unsteady hands. Her face went white as paper. "Oh my God!" she breathed. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is him!" Victoria's voice cracked. "This is exactly who she's been drawing. For months. Every single day. For months." They both turned to look at Sophia, who was now standing beside her chair, clutching her latest drawing to her chest. "His name is Danny," she said in a small, clear voice. "He told me so. He says his daddy misses him very much, and he misses his daddy too." Marcus's legs gave out. He sank into the nearest chair, his whole body shaking as 3 years of carefully controlled grief broke open like a dam. Sophia approached slowly, her drawing still pressed against her heart. "He wants you to know he's not hurt anymore," she said softly, "and he's not scared, and he still loves you more than all the stars in the sky." Those were Danny's words, the exact words his son had whispered on his last night alive. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Daddy." Marcus buried his face in his hands and wept. The silence that followed Marcus's breakdown lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. In that crystalline moment, the polished world of Caldwell Industries seemed to hold its breath. The hum of air conditioning, the distant murmur of executive meetings, even the traffic 42 floors below faded into nothing. Victoria Caldwell stood frozen, Danny's photograph trembling in her manicured fingers. She stared at the image of a gap-toothed boy in a Superman cape, then at her daughter, then back at the grieving man, who had just shattered every rational explanation she'd constructed for Sophia's obsessive drawings. "This isn't possible," she whispered, but her voice carried no conviction. Marcus lifted his head, tears still streaming down his cheeks. "I know. I've been telling myself the same thing since yesterday." Sophia moved closer, her latest drawing still clutched to her chest. "Danny says you don't have to cry, Mr. Marcus. He says crying is okay, but you don't have to be scared anymore." The use of his name hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd never told Sophia what to call him. He'd barely spoken to her at all. "How does she know my name?" he asked Victoria, his voice hoarse. Victoria shook her head helplessly. "I don't know. I've never mentioned you to her. We've never discussed you at all." "Danny told me," Sophia said simply. "He tells me lots of things." Victoria knelt beside her daughter, taking her small hands. "Sweetheart, I need you to tell me exactly what Danny says to you. Everything you can remember." Sophia's brow furrowed with concentration. "He comes when the bad dreams start. When I dream about Daddy getting hurt. Or about the men with the angry voices. Danny sits on my bed and tells me stories about the Sunshine Place until I'm not scared anymore." "What kind of stories?" Marcus asked gently. "Happy ones. About kids who can run fast without getting tired, and dogs that never get old, and daddies who never have to go away." Sophia's voice grew wistful. "He says all the sick kids get better there, and all the sad daddies get to hug their children again." Victoria's breath caught. "Sophia, has he ever said anything about his own father?" "He says his daddy worked really hard to make him better, but sometimes even daddies can't fix everything. He says his daddy thinks it's his fault, but it's not." Marcus doubled over, as if punched in the stomach. Those were his own thoughts, his own guilt, reflected back at him through the impossible conduit of a 7-year-old girl. "He says his daddy is very sad and very tired," Sophia continued, unaware of the devastation her words were causing. "He cleans buildings now because he doesn't want to be around other kids. It makes him remember too much." "How could she possibly know that?" Victoria whispered. Marcus couldn't speak. Everything Sophia had said was true. The guilt, the exhaustion, his deliberate choice to work in places where he wouldn't encounter children and their inevitable reminders of what he'd lost. Sophia approached Marcus again, this time holding out her drawing. "Danny wanted me to make this for you." With shaking hands, Marcus took the paper. The drawing showed a man and a boy sitting together under a vast, starry sky. The man's arm was around the boy's shoulders, and both were smiling. Above them, written in Sophia's careful script, "Love never goes away. It just changes homes." "I don't understand," Marcus choked out. "I don't understand any of this." Victoria rose slowly, her corporate composure completely abandoned. "Neither do I. But I know my daughter isn't lying. She's never been a fanciful child. She's always been almost painfully literal about everything," Danny says. "That's because she's been hurt too," Sophia said quietly. "He says when kids get hurt really bad, they forget how to pretend, so they need real friends to help them remember how to play." Victoria's face crumpled. "Oh, sweetheart." She pulled Sophia into a fierce hug, and Marcus could see the exact moment when Victoria's protective walls began to crack. This wasn't just about Sophia's mysterious connection to his son anymore. This was about a mother recognizing that her daughter was still drowning in trauma that expensive therapy hadn't been able to touch. "Mrs. Caldwell," Marcus said softly, "what happened to Sophia's father?" Victoria closed her eyes, her arms tightening around her daughter. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "He was murdered 3 months ago, in our home." The words fell like stones into still water, sending ripples of shock through the pristine office space. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. "Home invasion," Victoria continued, her voice mechanical. "They wanted the safe combination. James refused to give it to them. He tried to protect us. Sophia was hiding in her closet. She saw everything. Dear God. The police caught them eventually. 3 men, career criminals looking for easy money from a rich family." Victoria's laugh was bitter as broken glass. "They got away with $12,000 in cash and destroyed 3 lives." Marcus looked at Sophia, still wrapped in her mother's arms, and felt his heart break all over again. No wonder she drew pictures of safety. No wonder she needed an imaginary friend to chase away the nightmares. Except Danny wasn't imaginary. "I've tried everything," Victoria whispered. Therapy, medication, specialists. Nothing helps. She barely speaks to anyone except me, and even then, she trailed off. She talks to me, Marcus said quietly. Victoria looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Why? Why you? Why does she trust you when she won't trust trained professionals? Marcus studied Sophia's small face, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way she held herself as if ready to flee at any moment. Because I'm broken too, he said, finally. And kids can sense that. They know when an adult understands what it feels like to lose everything. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Over the next hour, as Victoria canceled her morning meetings and Marcus abandoned his cleaning cart, an extraordinary conversation unfolded. Sophia, finally in the presence of adults who believed her, began to share details about her encounters with Danny that left both Victoria and Marcus speechless. He showed me pictures once, Sophia said, curled up in her mother's lap, while Marcus sat across from them. Pictures of his daddy when he was little. Danny said his daddy used to build things with blocks, just like me. Marcus's throat tightened. I did love building blocks. My mother still has pictures of the towers I used to make. Danny said his daddy wanted to be an architect when he grew up, but then he became a teacher instead, because he loved kids so much. Victoria turned to stare at Marcus. Is that true? Marcus nodded slowly. I studied architecture in college, but during my student teaching requirement, I realized I'd rather help kids learn than design buildings. So I switched majors. How could Sophia possibly know that? Danny told me, Sophia said. Matter-of-factly, he knows lots of things about his daddy. He says his daddy reads him stories every night, even now. Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes again. I do. I still do. I read to his picture before I go to sleep. What book are you reading now? Sophia asked. The Chronicles of Narnia. We were halfway through The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when Marcus, couldn't finish. Sophia's face lit up. That's Danny's favorite. He loves Aslan. He says Aslan reminds him of the Sunshine Place. The parallels were becoming impossible to ignore. Every detail Sophia shared matched Marcus's private grief, his secret rituals, his most intimate memories of his son. Things no one else could know. There's something else, Victoria said slowly. Sophia, tell Mr. Marcus about when you first started drawing Danny. Sophia tilted her head thoughtfully. It was after the bad night. The night Daddy went away. I was in the hospital, and I couldn't stop crying. The doctors gave me medicine to sleep, but I kept having scary dreams. Then Danny came. What did he say? Marcus asked gently. He said he was sorry I was hurt. He said he knew what it felt like to be scared in a hospital. He sat with me until morning, and when I woke up, I wasn't scared anymore. I wanted to draw him so I wouldn't forget what he looked like. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. 3 months ago, that would have been right around the Tees anniversary of Danny's death. He'd spent that entire week in a fog of renewed grief, reading old medical files and torturing himself with what-ifs. I think, Victoria said carefully, that Danny found Sophia when she needed him most. The same way I think he led her to you now. But why? Marcus asked. Why would he? Why would my son care about a little girl he never met? Sophia looked at him with those 2 old eyes, because that's what kids do in the Sunshine Place. They help other kids who are still hurting. The simple statement hung in the air between them, profound in its innocence. Victoria stood up abruptly, setting Sophia gently on her feet. I need to show you something, she said to Marcus. Wait here with Sophia." She disappeared into her office and returned with a thick purple folder, the same one Sophia had been putting her drawings in. Victoria opened it on her desk, revealing dozens of pictures, all featuring the same boy. "This is every drawing Sophia has made since the attack," Victoria said. "Look at the progression. The earliest drawings were dark, violent scribbles, black crayon storms that spoke of terror and confusion. But gradually, purple began to appear. First, just small touches, then more and more, until entire pictures were rendered in Sophia's signature color. Purple was James's favorite color," Victoria explained quietly. "Sophia started using it right after Danny appeared in her dreams. The drawings told a story. The progression from chaos to comfort, from fear to friendship. In the later pictures, Sophia had drawn herself playing with Danny, building with blocks, reading books, sitting together under starry skies. She's been healing," Marcus realized. "Danny's been helping her heal. And now he's brought her to you," Victoria said. "The question is, why?" Before Marcus could answer, Sophia tugged on his sleeve. "I know why," she said softly. Both adults looked down at her. "Danny says his daddy is sick too. Not body sick like he was. Heart sick. And heart sick is harder to fix because you can't see it with doctor machines." Marcus knelt down to her level. "What else does Danny say?" "He says daddies aren't supposed to carry heavy, sad feelings all by themselves. He says that's too much for one person." Sophia paused, chewing her bottom lip. "He says, maybe if his daddy helps another little girl feel safe, he might remember how to feel safe too." The wisdom in her words hit Marcus like a physical force. Out of the mouths of babes, or in this case, out of the mouth of a traumatized child, channeling the spirit of his dead son. "Sophia," Victoria said gently, "would you like Mr. Marcus to visit us sometimes? Not just for work, but as a friend?" Sophia nodded eagerly. "Danny would like that. He says he misses having a daddy to talk to." Marcus looked at Victoria, seeing his own hope and fear reflected in her eyes. "Are you sure about this? I'm just a janitor. I can't afford therapy, or fancy treatments, or—" "Money can't buy what you have," Victoria interrupted. "You understand her. You understand loss. And somehow, impossibly, you're connected to whatever force is helping my daughter heal." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "I don't pretend to understand what's happening here. Maybe it's grief-induced hallucination. Maybe it's some kind of psychological projection. Or maybe—" She looked at Sophia, who was humming quietly while organizing her crayons. "Maybe there are things in this world that can't be explained by logic or science." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't care what's causing this connection. I only care that it's helping Sophia. And if Danny can help my daughter remember how to feel safe, then maybe Sophia can help you remember how to live." Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. The first loosening of the iron bands of grief that had constrained his breathing for 3 years. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to be around a child without falling apart." Sophia looked up from her crayons. "Danny says falling apart is okay. He says sometimes people have to break before they can get put back together the right way." And there it was again. Wisdom that seemed far beyond a 7-year-old's understanding, delivered with the matter-of-fact certainty of a child who had no reason to doubt what she was saying. "What do you think?" Victoria asked Marcus. "Would you be willing to try?" Marcus looked around the opulent office. The mahogany furniture, the crystal awards, the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking a city he'd never thought he'd be welcome in. Then he looked at Sophia, clutching her purple crayons and watching him with eyes that held their own kind of wealth. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'd like to try." Sophia clapped her hands together, her face lighting up with the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her. "Danny's happy," she announced. "He says, 'Thank you for listening.'" As the morning sun climbed higher over Manhattan, three people sat together in an unlikely circle. A grieving billionaire, a broken janitor, and a traumatized child who somehow bridged the impossible distance between them. Outside, the city hummed with its usual urgency, but inside Victoria Caldwell's office, time moved differently. Here, in this space where corporate power met profound loss, something new was beginning to grow. Not a miracle, nothing so dramatic or sudden, but a connection, a recognition that some wounds could only be healed by other wounded souls. And somewhere, in whatever realm existed beyond the reach of medical science or business logic, a little boy named Danny smiled and settled in to watch over the three people he loved most in two different worlds. The investigation had begun, not into fraud or corporate malfeasance, but into the mysterious ways that love transcends death, and how the deepest griefs sometimes carry within them the seeds of unexpected grace. 3 weeks had passed since that impossible morning in Victoria's office, 3 weeks of tentative visits and careful conversations. Marcus had started coming to the 42nd floor during his lunch breaks, sitting with Sophia while she drew her purple crayon masterpieces. Victoria had rearranged her schedule to be present for these sessions, watching with amazement as her daughter slowly began to emerge from the protective shell she'd built around herself. But healing, Marcus was learning, rarely followed a straight path. The crisis began on a Thursday afternoon when Marcus arrived to find Sophia's corner desk empty. Victoria stood by the windows, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "I don't care what the board thinks," she was saying. "Cancel everything! Find them! Now!" Marcus set down his cleaning supplies. "What's wrong?" "What?" Victoria ended her call with shaking fingers. "She's gone. Sophia. She disappeared during her piano lesson." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What do you mean, disappeared?" Mrs. Patterson was teaching her in the music room downstairs. Sophia asked to use the bathroom. When she didn't come back after 10 minutes, Mrs. Patterson went looking. She found this. Victoria held up a crumpled piece of paper, one of Sophia's drawings, but different from her usual work. This one was all black crayon, violent slashes across the page. In the center, barely visible through the dark scribbles, was a small figure curled in a ball. "She's been having nightmares again," Victoria whispered. "The anniversary is coming up. 3 months since James died. I thought she was getting better, but—" Marcus studied the drawing, his heart hammering. "Has she ever run away before?" "No, never. She doesn't go anywhere alone. She's too afraid." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "God, Marcus, what if someone took her? What if those men have friends? What if—" "Stop." Marcus gripped her shoulders gently. "We'll find her. But I need you to think like Sophia, not like a terrified mother. Where would she go? What place would feel safe to her?" Victoria closed her eyes, fighting for control. "I don't know. She doesn't have safe places. Not since the attack." "Yes, she does," Marcus said firmly. "She has Danny." Understanding dawned in Victoria's eyes. "You think she's trying to find him?" "I think she's trying to find some place where she can hear him clearly. Somewhere quiet, away from all the chaos." Marcus was already moving toward the door. "Call security. Tell them to check every floor, every empty office, every storage room, but especially the places that feel separate from the main building." "Where are you going?" "To think like a scared little girl looking for her best friend." Marcus had spent 6 months cleaning this building, learning its hidden spaces and forgotten corners. If he were 7 years old and desperate to connect with someone who existed only in dreams and drawings, where would he go? The roof. Closer to heaven, closer to the sunshine place Sophia talked about. But when Marcus reached the roof access door, it was locked. The security alarm still armed. He tried the maintenance levels, the abandoned offices on floors scheduled for renovation, even the parking garage. Nothing. Then he remembered something Sophia had said weeks ago. Danny likes quiet places, places where grown-ups don't think to look. The building's chapel. Caldwell Industries was old enough to have been built with a small interfaith chapel on the 15th floor. A relic from an era when corporate buildings routinely included spaces for reflection and prayer. It had been closed for renovation 2 years ago and never reopened, forgotten in the endless cycle of Victoria's business demands. Marcus took the elevator to 15 and found the chapel doors unlocked, a thin sliver of light visible underneath. Inside, surrounded by dust-covered pews and scaffolding, Sophia sat, on the floor in front of a stained glass window. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the colored glass, painting her small figure in jeweled blues and purples. She was crying softly, clutching her latest drawing to her chest. "Sophia?" She looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Mr. Marcus, I can't find him. I can't find Danny anywhere." Marcus approached slowly, his heart breaking at the desperation in her voice. "What do you mean, sweetheart? He's not coming to me anymore. I tried so hard to see him, but he won't come. The scary dreams are back. And Danny's not there to make them go away." Marcus knelt beside her, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way her small hands trembled. "How long has it been since you've seen him?" 4 days. "Ever since," she hiccuped through her tears. "Ever since. Mom started talking about the bad day coming back, the anniversary." Victoria had been preparing for the 3-month mark since James's death, scheduling extra therapy sessions and trying to shield Sophia from media attention about the trial. But children sensed adult anxiety like animals sensed earthquakes. "Sophia, can I see your drawing?" She handed him the paper reluctantly. This one showed 2 children standing on opposite sides of a deep, dark chasm. One child, Sophia, was reaching across the gap. But the other child, Danny, was fading away, becoming translucent. At the bottom, in shaky letters, "Please don't leave me alone." Marcus felt his own eyes fill with tears. "Oh, honey, you think Danny is leaving you?" Sophia nodded miserably. "I think I made him sad. I think he doesn't want to be my friend anymore because I'm too scared all the time." "No, sweetheart. No, that's not how it works." Marcus set the drawing aside and took her small hands in his. "Can I tell you something about Danny? Something his daddy knows?" She nodded eagerly. Danny loved kids who were scared. When he was in the hospital, there were other sick children who were much more frightened than he was. And you know what Danny did? What? He made them laugh. He shared his toys. He held their hands when they had to get shots. Danny never turned away from scared kids. He helped them. Marcus smiled softly. "So if Danny seems far away, it's not because he doesn't want to help you. It's because he knows you're getting stronger." Sophia frowned. "But I'm not stronger. I'm still scared all the time." "Are you? Think about it. 3 weeks ago, you wouldn't talk to anyone except your mom. Today, you talked to Mrs. Patterson. You asked to use the bathroom by yourself. You found your way to this chapel all alone. That's pretty brave for someone who's still scared all the time." Sophia considered this, her tears slowing. "I did do those things. And maybe," Marcus said gently, "Danny is stepping back a little, because he knows you don't need him as much as you used to. That's not abandonment, sweetheart. That's trust. But what if the bad dreams come back? Marcus looked around the dusty chapel, at the colored light streaming through ancient glass, at the scaffolding that spoke of renovation and renewal. Then you remember that you're not alone. You have your mom, who loves you more than anything in the world. You have me, and I'm not going anywhere. And you have Danny, even when you can't see him. How do you know? Because, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I talk to him too. Sophia's eyes widened. You do? Every night before I go to sleep, I tell Danny about my day. I tell him about you, about your drawings, about how proud I am that you're learning to be brave. And you know what I think he tells me back? What? That he's proud of you too, that he's not leaving. He's just trusting you to take care of yourself while he watches from somewhere you can't see. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing this new perspective. Then she said, Mr. Marcus, can I tell you something? Anything. Sometimes. When? I draw Danny. I pretend he's your real son. I pretend we're all a family, and nobody ever has to be scared anymore. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, stealing his breath and making his chest tight with an emotion too complex to name. Sophia. I know it's pretend, she said quickly. I know Danny's in the sunshine place and can't really be here, but sometimes pretending helps the scared feelings go away. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling 3 years of carefully constructed emotional barriers beginning to crumble. It's okay to pretend, he whispered. Are you crying? He was. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at this brave, broken little girl who had somehow become the bridge between his past and his future. I'm crying because I'm happy, he managed. Happy that Danny brought us together. Happy that you trust me. Happy that we don't have to be scared alone anymore. Sophia scooted closer and leaned against his side, her small weight warm and solid against him. Danny's here, she said softly. I can feel him now. Marcus looked around the chapel, half expecting to see his son's gap-toothed grin materializing in the colored light, but there was nothing visible. Only the sense of peace that seemed to settle over them both. What's he saying? Marcus asked. He says, you're doing good, being my friend. He says he's not worried about me anymore because I have you. Sophia paused. And he says it's okay for daddies to love more than one child. Marcus's breath caught. He said that? Uh-huh. He says hearts don't get used up when you love someone. They get bigger. Before Marcus could respond, the chapel doors burst open. Victoria appeared, flanked by security guards, her face white with panic. Sophia! Thank God! She rushed forward and pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace. Don't ever scare me like that again. Don't ever. I'm sorry, Mom. I was looking for Danny. But Marcus helped me find him. Victoria looked at Marcus over Sophia's head, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, she mouthed silently. Mrs. Caldwell, Marcus said carefully. I think Sophia and I need to talk to you about something important. That evening, in Victoria's penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, an extraordinary conversation took place. The three of them sat together on the living room floor. Victoria's idea, an attempt to make the discussion feel less formal and more like family. I've been thinking, Victoria said, about what happened today, about why Sophia felt she had to run away to find Danny. She didn't run away, Marcus corrected gently. She went looking for help. There's a difference. Victoria nodded. And she found it. She found you. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Marcus, I want to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Are you planning to disappear from our lives? Because if you are, I need to prepare Sophia for that. I can't let her get attached to someone who's going to leave. Marcus looked at Sophia, who was drawing again. This time, a picture of 3 people holding hands under a starry sky. I don't want to leave, he said quietly. But I don't know what you're asking me to be. I'm not a therapist. I'm not qualified to. I'm not asking you to be her therapist, Victoria interrupted. I'm asking you to be her friend. Maybe more than that, if you're willing. What do you mean? Victoria took a deep breath. I mean that Sophia needs a father figure, someone who understands her, who can help her feel safe. And you need to remember what it feels like to protect someone again. Marcus felt his heart racing. Everyone. Victoria, I can't replace your husband. I wouldn't even try. I'm not asking you to replace James. I'm asking you to be Marcus, the man who talks to his son every night, who carries Danny's picture in his wallet, who somehow found my daughter when she needed him most. Sophia looked up from her drawing. Danny says yes. Both adults turned to her. Danny says yes, Mr. Marcus should stay. A brother Broton here. He says daddies and daughters choose each other with their hearts, not just with their blood. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Is that what you want, sweetheart? Do you want Marcus to be part of our family? Sophia nodded vigorously. Yes, and Danny wants it too. He says then he'll have a daddy and a sister who both love him. Marcus looked at these 2 people, this wounded, wealthy woman and her traumatized daughter, who had somehow become the center of his universe. 3 weeks ago, he'd been an invisible janitor, with nothing left to live for. Now he was being offered something he'd never imagined possible. A second chance at fatherhood. I don't have money, he said quietly. I can't give Sophia the kind of life she's used to. Money didn't save her from trauma, Victoria replied. Money didn't help her heal. You did. I live in a studio apartment in Queens. We'll figure it out. I work as a janitor. So? James started as a mailroom clerk. What matters is character, not career. Marcus looked at Sophia again. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough? Sophia set down her crayon and came to sit beside him. Danny says, nobody's perfect at being a daddy. He says you just have to love with your whole heart and try your best every day. The wisdom in her words, the absolute certainty in her voice, finally broke through Marcus's last defenses. Okay, he whispered. Yes, I want to stay. Sophia threw her arms around his neck, and Victoria moved to embrace them both. They sat there on the living room floor. 3 broken people beginning to heal each other, while somewhere beyond sight, a little boy named Danny smiled and knew his work was complete. The transformation was beginning. Not dramatic or sudden, but real and lasting. Love, Marcus realized, didn't actually conquer death. But sometimes, if you were very lucky, love found a way to transcend it. 6 months later, Marcus Chen moved out of his studio apartment in Queens and into a brownstone in Brooklyn. Close enough to Manhattan for Victoria's work, family-friendly enough for Sophia's needs, and modest enough that Marcus didn't feel like he was living in someone else's life. The media had eventually caught wind of the story. Billionaire CEO marries janitor screamed the headlines. But Victoria had learned to ignore the noise. What mattered was the quiet Sunday mornings when the 3 of them made pancakes together, or the bedtime stories Marcus told Sophia, or the way Sophia had started calling him Daddy Marcus, with Danny's blessing. The nightmares still came sometimes, but they were gentler now, easier to chase away. And Sophia still drew pictures of Danny, but the images had changed. Now they showed 4 people together. Sophia, Victoria, Marcus, and the boy who had brought them all together. "Danny's not sad anymore," Sophia announced one evening as she finished her latest drawing. "He says his heart is full because his daddy is happy again." Marcus looked at the picture she'd drawn. Danny, standing beside their family group, his gap-toothed smile bright as sunshine, his small hand resting on Marcus's shoulder. At the bottom, in Sophia's careful script, "Love never goes away. It just finds new ways to grow." And in that moment, Marcus Chen finally understood. He hadn't lost his son. He'd simply learned that the capacity to love and be loved was infinite, transcendent, and sometimes miraculous in its ability to create families from the most unlikely circumstances. Danny was gone, but Danny's love lived on. In Marcus, in Sophia, in the impossible connection that had saved them all. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. The next story.